Well, I wouldn't exactly call this breaking news, but it is some news. Okay. Our president, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., has come out swinging. I don't know what they putting in his cornflakes the last few weeks, but this man has come out pugnacious. And last night was no different. This man came out swinging at the Republicans in his speech, as you heard at the beginning of the show in the intro. And hell, he's been doing this all week long. I mean, he's truly feeling himself. He is truly feeling himself, making a call to the Democrats earlier this week in one of his speeches.
And we're not going to let anyone or anything tear America apart. I'll close with this. We're at a serious moment in our nation's history. The MAGA Republicans don't just threaten our personal rights and economic security. They're a threat to our very democracy. They refuse to accept the will of the people. They embrace political violence. They don't believe in democracy. This is why, in this moment, those of you who love this country, Democrats, independents, mainstream Republicans, we must be stronger, more determined, and more committed to saving America than the MAGA Republicans are destroying America.
Whoa, shots fired. Shots fired. Yeah, I mean, Joe Biden has really put the smack down this whole week. He did not sound his typical dementia-riddled self this last week. I will give him his credit. Of course, he's got to say a lot of the things that he's saying. He's got to talk about how the MAGA Republicans are killing democracy and whatnot. But I do have to remind folks that what happened in 2020 with the Republicans refusing to accept Joe Biden as a legitimate winner of the 2020 election was only payback for the Democrats pushing Russiagate in 2016. I've spent the last 6 years or so, 7 years here arguing with people about Russiagate. A lot of you on the phone. Since the day after the 2016 election, the Democrats refused to accept the results of the 2016 election. Okay? At first, they started off with Russia hacked our election, which implied that they hacked in the voting booths and changed votes from Democrat to Republican, changed votes from Hillary Clinton to Republican to the Donald Trump, I'm sorry. Then it became, Russia, bought some Facebook ads, and because of that, they spread disinformation when even studies have shown it looks like Russia may have spent $100,000 buying ads on social media to affect the 2016 election. $100,000 at the most. Meanwhile, you have Saudi Arabia, you have China, you have Israel, AIPAC. You have legit foreign actors who interfere in our elections regularly. Saudi Arabia owns part of our media. They're big owners of News Corp. They own part of Twitter, the Saudi royal family. So it's much more reasonable to state that a right-wing totalitarian society like Saudi Arabia has a lot more effect on our country's elections than Russia could in a million years. But yet and still, liberals ran with that nonsense for 4 straight years while Donald Trump was in office. I said it was nonsense in 2015 because if they had, you think Barack Obama, who was the actual president at the time, would have done nothing about it? You think Barack Obama would just sit there and let Russia steal an election from his Secretary of State? Of course not. It was nonsense. And it was nonsense cooked up because Hillary Clinton could not accept that she spent $1.5 billion on an election and lost to a game show host. A game show host and a con artist. A game show host and a con artist. And so that was the issue there. So they spent 4 years pushing that nonsense. And then the MAGA folks started pushing, well, Joe Biden's not legitimate in retaliation. I think everybody should be in jail. All the Russia-gators should be in jail, in my opinion. And all the insurrectionists from January 6th should be in jail as well. Everybody who pushed the Russiagate narrative, the nonsense Russiagate narrative should be in jail. That's Peter Schiff. I'm sorry, Adam Schiff. Is it Adam Schiff? Rachel Maddow, all of them. All of them who sought to undermine the validity of the 2016 and 2020 elections. All those people in Congress, they should be out on their keisters. And I say the same thing about all the right-wingers who refused to accept that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. Because once you start sowing those seeds, you start sowing those seeds that America's elections are not legitimate, you are encouraging a banana republic at that point. And the type of political violence that we only got a hint of on January 6th becomes normalized. Let me get this caller real quick. Hello, caller.
Brother, I miss you.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, good. But you're spot on.
Yes.
The reality is very simple. America only works as long as everybody buys into the idea.
Yes.
And now, for 2 state elections, we've had parties sabotage the idea.
Yep.
And they're going to say with a straight face, we didn't do it.
I know.
Wasn't us.
I know.
So when all these years we've been told, oh, don't waste your time on third parties. The best thing I can see happening from this is the rise of a new third party.
Yes.
It's reaction to that, because people need to understand that these parties are not government agents.
Nope.
They are just private organizations that have attached themselves to the government trough and established themselves as some sort of quasi-government entity. But in reality, just like they formed those 2 parties, we should be forming parties that reflect our interests today. Mm-hmm. The whole thing about the student loan mess. The reality is we have this mess because the federal government got into the game and they allowed the colleges to take advantage of the situation.
Yep.
When they were controlling the money, they had the power all on. Once they were controlling the money, they said, look, just like they do with Medicare, this is what we're willing to pay for a college education. You either make your fees accordingly or you won't be getting our money. Just like they do with the drugs. I miss you, bruh.
I miss you too.
Hear you.
Hey, feel free to call in anytime.
All right. Love you, bruh.
Love you too. The Rev. Yes. The Rev. Yes, but he is absolutely right. He's 100% right. This is why I've been voting third party for about a decade now. 2012, I voted for Gary Johnson, who's an independent. 2016, I voted for Jill Stein. 2020, I voted for Howie Hawkins. Not because I thought they were going to actually win, but because this 2-party duopoly has to end in this country. These 2 parties are irredeemably corrupt on some level. And I know a lot of you guys vote for the Democrats or the Republicans, and you think, well, if we can just get enough good guys in here, then they will, they will do something. No, because you're always going to have the corrupt element of the party that holds the purse strings, that has all the power thanks to their corporate donors. They have all the money. They have all the power. And that's why you see they end up being co-opted. You see AOC has been co-opted, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Bernie Sanders. All these people have been co-opted by the corporate Democrats. Bernie Sanders has been fighting the corporate liberals for the last 30, 40 years. And now you see him outside on the steps, sitting on the steps of Congress, looking completely exhausted while they drag him through the mud. Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema can hold the entire party's agenda hostage if they don't get exactly what they want. But if Bernie asks for something, then Bernie's being unbearable. And Bernie's not being a team player. Well, guess who controls the media too? The corporate liberals. And so it's almost like you can't win from inside either. And that's exactly how they like it. That's why I don't respect it. And also, this idea that America is a democracy. America is not a democracy. And ain't been probably for a very long time. There was just a study that was done in 2014 that showed that the United States is in fact an oligarchy, not a democracy. There was a study done by Princeton University in conjunction with Northwestern University that came to this conclusion that between 1981 and 2002, on public policy issues, they found out that elite Americans, economically elite Americans, elite Americans, they actually get proposed changes 45% of the time in our legal within our political system, whereas less than 1 out of 5 policies that are favored by the majority of working class Americans gets adopted. So you have things like universal health care that is supported by 70% of the public. Half are Republican supported. Okay, 80% of Democrats support it. You would think it's a slam dunk. No, it's not a slam dunk. Less than 20% of the time, you're going to get something that the public wants. Non-economically elite Americans will at least. Economically elite ones will get it 45% of the time. So the majority of our laws that get passed are those that are favored by the economic elites. That's who funds these parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. That is what they respect. That is what they respect. And, as Lawrence O'Donnell put it so eloquently, you have to show them who's boss.
If you want to pull the major party that is closest to the way you're thinking, to what you're thinking, you must show them that you're capable of not voting for them.
Because the way the Democratic Party is run now for quite a number of presidential cycles is they pick a nominee in a kind of half-assed process that doesn't really represent much of anybody, and then they tell everybody to just shut up. Don't bring up anything that will complicate life for your nominee.
That's how it is. That's how it is. But no, old Joe was not finished. He was definitely not finished.
Police lost their lives as a result of that day. Police lost their lives. One of the officers said it was worse than anything he had experienced in war in Iraq. So let me say this to my MAGA Republican friends in Congress. Don't tell me you support law enforcement if you won't condemn what happened on the 6th. Don't tell me. Can't do it. For God's sake, whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? Look. You're either on the side of a mob or the side of the police. You can't be pro-law enforcement and pro-insurrection. You can't be a party of law and order and call the people who attacked the police on January 6th patriots. You can't do it.
Woo! Brought the heat on that one. And I actually agree with him there. The right wing have always said, especially when it comes to things like protests, that, you know, they support law and order. That's all the Republicans. The right wing has always said they talked about their love of law and order. And then the second things don't go their way, they rush the Capitol and decide that they're going to overturn a Democratic election, well, at least a semi-democratic election. So no, they've actually lost that moral high ground that they had. All throughout the summer of 2020, all they did was condemn the actions of Black Lives Matter protesters, even those who were really antagonized by the police, who started gassing and pepper spraying protesters, even before who started gassing and pepper spraying protesters before there was anything violent happening. A lot of times the police sort of sparked the violence by antagonizing nonviolent people, and yet still the right wing still took the side of law enforcement. When Donald Trump took his Bible across the street from the White House to take a photo op picture at a church, he had the police gas and pepper spray nonviolent protesters. They were out there so he could take a picture, a photo op. And they still defended that. They still defended that. So now you don't get to have the moral high ground. You don't get to have that moral high ground if you're out there supporting things like that. I'm sorry, you don't. So I may have to agree with Slow Joe right there.